Good evening. I think it's going to be a busy one tonight, judging by the amount of people and the amount of questions that have been fired over already. So, yeah, hold on tight. This might be quite hectic. I've had loads of questions sort of fired over beforehand, and judging from what turbo options, TGV Deletes, use of Nitrous, engine and gearbox oil recommendations, and a few people have put questions in the live chat already, so that's good to see. If you've been here before, obviously if you put a Q at the start of your question, it helps me identify which is a question, which is just a comment. I'll star them and hopefully answer them during the session. Aiming for today to be an hour. Previously they've always been around that hour. If you want to get your question in early, it will help because it gets a bit manic towards the end. Right, okay. If you're new here, yeah, say hello, say where you're from, what car you're driving. It just helps me to see where people are, and yeah, promise not to bite. If you're watching on replay, thank you very much. Obviously you won't be able to participate in the live chat, but I'll put the questions up on the screen, read them out. So if you're not watching it but listening to it as a podcast, then hopefully that's useful. And I'll also try and put the description of the questions in the description of the video afterwards, just so that you can see what the video is covering. So that's cool. With that said, we'll get started with some of the first questions. So, question from Daniel Brewster: thoughts on TGV deletes when they're required, and besides turning off the codes, what needs to be changed or tuned in the map? Right, TGVs, just yeah, if you're able to do it in your country. I know some of the states, like the states in the US, you can't. But yeah, taking the TGVs out, switching off the codes is relatively straightforward in the ECU ROM. As far as changes to the tune in the map, in my experience, there isn't really an awful lot of change on that. It does lean it out slightly, I think because there's more air able to go in, and it does generally make more power as a result, but it's not a massive difference. So it's probably just a case of just checking the air fuel ratio and making sure that it's happy, and you know, from a benefits point of view, you're getting rid of something that could potentially fail, so that's a good thing. Question from Steve. Right, ignition coils. So newage coil packs found two versions, black and grey. Is it correct in favour the ignition dwell is different on each? How do you choose which is correct? What's the effect of the wrong coils? There's actually three versions. There's black and grey for the 2 litre, and there's a 2.5 litre one, which is slightly shorter. I haven't noticed any difference whatsoever between the black and the grey coil packs. I know in the map there is a slight difference in the dwell times, but I think that's just purely the fact that the black ones were used in the Bug-Eye WRX, and they were just getting used to the software. So I don't think it's actually a hardware issue. But I would put the STI ones in, whatever you're doing. They're the same price as far as I can tell. So I think the STI ones are ended in 541, I think, off the top of my head. So yeah, fit the grey STI ones for the 2 litre. They're slightly longer, and that'll be perfect. Right, question from Walker's Country Life. 400 plus turbo options for twin scroll legacy are there any, or do people convert to Impreza twin scroll setup when there's more, where there's more availability of turbos? Yeah, on the twin scroll legacy, the BP5, that kind of thing, you're into the realms of making a hybrid out of your existing turbo. So like the manual version has a TD04 HLA, I think it is. So putting slightly bigger internals into that turbo will get more power, but you won't get anywhere near that 400 horsepower mark. To do that, you've got to be into the bigger turbos, and the bigger turbos, the options are available on the Impreza side of things, so it would need changes to the intercooler setup, and yeah, obviously you'd need fueling changes, whatever, but yeah, to get to 400 in a twin scroll legacy, you're going to have to go down the Impreza route, or the Impreza turbo route. Right, what have we got in here questions wise? Right, anything in there yet? Right, we got a few, blimey, quite a few people joining in. Okay, right, back to the questions from beforehand. I did promise that I would cover these, guaranteed to cover them. Interesting question from Kyle. I've abbreviated it, Kyle. You've got a blob eye STI running on a G4X link ECU running 760 with a very good map on a 235. Spools up nicely, but you want to use a dry shot of nitrous to spool it up. By dry shot, for the benefit of everyone else, dry shot means that you're only injecting the nitrous rather than fuel as well. So it'll be one solenoid. The extra fuel that you'll need will be added in by the ECU. So obviously the ECU would need to know that the nitrous is working, but your mapper will set that up with you. Pros and cons. Pros, more power, better spool up. It will easily do what you want it to do. Cons, you're getting up towards the limit of the block. I don't know whether your block is sleeved, but I found the EJ22, the limit on that before the liners start cracking is about 750. So if you're running sleeve block, then the limit is higher, but it's limited by the head gasket. Pros and cons. So the cons would be you're up taking more out of the block. Another con is it is very addictive, and you say that you just want it to spool up, but the temptation is always there to, you know, use it for extra power as well. That was certainly my experience. You know, I started off with a 50 shot, then a 75. Eventually ended up with a 150 horsepower shot on mine. It gets very addictive, and the extra torque is absolutely mind-blowing. So good luck with that one. Yeah, let us know how that goes. Right, another question from beforehand, from Jordan Cohen. How much power can a version 1, version 2 motor take reliably and safely, stock and forged? Stock, the problem with stock engines is, you know, it's 20, God knows how many, 24, 25 years old now. So stock when it was new as opposed to stock now, it's hard to tell. But they generally up to 350 flywheel horsepower in the UK seem to be okay, as long as you're not revving it super high. But then with the version 1, version 2 hydraulic lifters, you will suffer at the top end anyway with the old heads if it's a stock engine. On a forged engine, if it's been built properly, the limit will be, you know, whatever the internals are good for. Mods to reach those. Yeah, for the three, let's say it's 350 for a stock engine. The gearbox should be able to cope with that if you have some degree of mechanical sympathy. the injectors will need changing to 440s. They'll run out about 345 horsepower. Obviously you'll do fuel pump. The slanted top mount intercooler needs to go, front mount intercooler all the way on that, and the standard TD05 16G should get you close to that sort of figure, and ECU to control it. Right, another question. Right, Daniel again. He's joining us from Sydney in Australia. I think it's 7 o'clock in the morning there. He's supposed to be at work. I don't know whether he's live on with us. Thoughts on an aftermarket exhaust manifolds, equal length versus unequal length. I covered this in that first 10 myths video. I haven't seen any difference power wise from changing from on a single scroll turbo from equal length to unequal length. Just the difference in the sound. So if you had, let's say, GT spec unequal length headers and you put GT spec equal length headers, so we're pretty much comparing apples with apples, I don't think there's any difference power wise. So there we are. Somebody proved me wrong on that, you know, with a proper test. Right, any more questions in there so far? Right, okay, so Maurice Thompson had a question beforehand. 01 Subaru Legacy B4 Blitzen, nice car, love those, really cool shapes. Ignition coil number 3, getting constant 5 volt signal, coil pack is good. I presume you've swapped the coil pack to another cylinder and check that, but it's not firing. So I would be, I tell you, I did, right, okay, so this is the pinout, ECU pinout for, it should be for your car, B4. If I can find it on my system. Right, so you've got 3 pins on the coils. So one will be a 12 volt static. So when the ignition's on, that'll be 12 volts. The center one will be ignition ground. Ignition ground is here we go, on B13618. B13618 is looking into the ECU from the wire end, is that bottom row, second one in from the right. So continuity check, or check that your that pin on the coil is getting ground. If it's not getting ground, then do a continuity check on that and just see whether there's a break in the wire somewhere. Mice like the wiring on Subarus. So check the one of the pins has got 12 volts. Middle one has got like ignition ground, and the other one should be a waveform, so it should be going up and down. If it's not, then there's an issue somewhere with the wiring. With a 20-year-old car, it's a possibility, but I would probably be looking at the continuity checks on those wires and just make sure that, like, if you compare like coil number 1, what you're reading on those to what you're reading on cylinder 3, then that will point you in the right direction. If it's that 5 volt, then run another wire from the ECU from that pin, from whatever the pin was, for the ignition pin. So oh, wrong one. Right, ignition pin 13622 for, so it's that bottom row again, and that should, you can run a separate wire from that pin to the 5-volt wire on the coil pack lead, and that should make it work, hopefully. Right, let's come back to the big screen. Maurice, if you haven't got that pin out, so if you want to buzz me an email, I'll send you a copy of that pin out diagram. Right. Okay, we got a series of things from Liam Andrews, 07 WRX STI. Now got a new EJ257, new camshaft sensor, new crank sensor, VVT solenoids, pulleys, big engine rebuild. However, you're getting an intermittent PO11 and PO21, so the cams are over advanced, the intake cams are over advanced. Okay, clears after the engine. Okay. Sometimes you can clear the car when the car is running, doesn't appear again. Yeah, to me, no, it wouldn't be a case of, sorry, still in the process of running the engine in. Could the temporary code be as a result of not having it mapped yet since the rebuild? No, it won't be that. It will be more likely to be either the filter is still in the oil supply lines for the solenoid, or the actual VVT pulley in the on the cams are dirty or blocked or not working correctly. You can take them apart and clean them. I've seen that a few times recently. So not a mapping thing, but a mechanical thing. Okay, right, let me... Right, so any more questions there that I can cover that are related? Alright, lots of questions. Right, let me... Okay, let's go back to the top. Okay, so LH, if tuning for 300 to 330 brake horsepower in a classic without sacrificing response, is a TD04 19T hybrid best, or is there a better option? So you got some good results with the Fastline hybrid. Yeah, it's essentially putting a bigger wheel in the smaller turbo. You get more airflow makes more power. Whether it's the hybrid GTX or the Fastline one, they do similar things, but it depends who builds it. I've had good results with the Fastline hybrid TD04s. They are a little bit laggier than the standard TD04, but you would expect that, but they're not noticeably laggier. They would certainly do that 300 to 330, no problem at all. If it's I'm presuming a UK 2000 for that, be a good turbo for that. Okay, right. Alright, question from Mark Pownell. Can an O2 WRX be mapped without an aftermarket ECU, and how? Yes, it can absolutely be mapped without an aftermarket ECU. The standard ECU on those is very capable. Just need to access it through ECU edit or ECU flash. I did a video on reading the ROMs, and you'll be able to follow that and access the ROMs on there, or take it to an established mapper that knows what they're doing with Subarus, and they'll be able to do it easily. Okay. Right, evening Duncan and all. Do the various trick up pipes make much difference on spool? Compared to what? The standard up pipe, i.e. the standard up pipe without the cat, is a perfect size. Putting GT spec headers on there where there's a big up pipe actually makes the turbo laggier. So a Harvey, a trick up pipe where it actually goes into a Venturi does help spool it up better than the standard large up pipe, but neither of those will be better than the standard STI up pipe, in my opinion, or certainly from what I've seen. Alright, where are we? Cheetah Chaser. Right, I Duncan, Jose Lopez, Map my GC8, VF48, Alcatel ECU, mapped on BP Ultimate. Can I run it on Repsol 98? Yeah, the Repsol I think is better than the BP Ultimate, or the Galp 98 as well. Right, Phil Lynn says, what do you think about the IAG closed-deck block? Are they getting better than the closed-deck block inserts? Are you referring to the billet block? If you are, I think that's epic. The closed-deck block inserts into a EJ257 support the top of the board, but they don't, in my opinion, solve the issue with the fact that the actual liners are only 5mm thick. And when you put the inserts in, they tend to be machined afterwards, or they should be machined afterwards, or at least honed. So essentially you're making the liners thinner and theoretically weaker. So I'm not a great fan of those closed-deck inserts. IAG, great company, do some fabulous stuff. If it's their billet blocks, yeah, they'll be really good for really good power. Hopefully they're watching this and they'll send me a free one and I'll test it. I can't afford one. Okay, Lewis Ingram, hi Duncan, have a 97 UK Turbo 2000, looking to get an ESL fitted and running a WR Sport map. Okay, my current mods are decat center pipe, non-standard backbox air filter and silicon. The ESL have pretty much run out of ECU, so unless it's a second-hand one, you won't be able to get a new one now. Only options for that are Link, Cyvex, so both of those are significantly more money than the ESL option. Which is a shame, but second hand you can pick them up and then map up nicely, and would certainly be fine for that sort of spec. Right, DK, hey Duncan, what would be the difference at RPM between my VF36 and a VF400 in spool time? On a 2 litre, you're probably about 500 horsepower, 500 RPM difference. so slightly later on the VF400, but it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. Not that VF36 is a bad turbo, they're a fabulous turbo. Oh, sorry, I missed the last part of Lewis's question. Lewis, white pipe, would this run fine on the ProDrive map, or would it need checking on the dyno? If you're making changes to the car that you think are going to improve it, it's always worth getting it checked out. It's a lot easier and a lot cheaper to do that than replace the engine. I'm not saying it's going to kill the engine, but for the sake of a bit of dyno time and whatever, it's better to get it checked. Yeah, the VF36 does kind of run out of puff, but this is a great balance for spooling up early. But what it does mean is anywhere from 3,000 to 8,500, you've got, comfortably over 300 horsepower. So it doesn't really matter what gear you're in, you're going to make quick progress. All right. Okay, Liam, question, running in with 1040, could the intermittent PO11 and 21 be due to this running in? Or I would doubt it. I think it's more likely to be either a blocked filter, which just take them out. The only problem is on the right hand side of the engine, if you're looking from the front of the car, the filter is in the banjo that's actually behind the cam belt covers, so you need to take the cam belt off to get to it. It's either that or the pulleys themselves, but you're going to be taking the cam belt off to take the pulleys off. So I'd say cam belt needs to come off and inspect the pulleys. Right, Dan and the Miniman. Right, question, are you able to have multiple maps on a standard ECU 2003 Blob WRX? Sometimes need a more economical drive. It is possible with like the speed density ROMs that are out there to have a high boost, low boost, and different ignition maps and fuel maps. But off boost, they're all going to be the same. If you're just driving along, the limit on the economy is, the Subaru engine. There's not really going to be a difference between driving slowly on a high boost map and driving slowly on a low boost map. If you want to limit the boosts available, then put some thicker carpet mats in there. Yeah, can do the multiple maps on there, but for economy, I think it's a waste of time. Personal opinion. Done a full check of the banjo bolts and filter, all clean. Any other possibility you can think of worth getting rid of the filter? Yeah, there was a Subaru bulletin that went out in 2007 that said for all dealers to remove those filters, because it was such a pain for the dealers to do that. Most of them ignored it, but there was a Subaru official bulletin. The filters aren't needed, bin them. So I'm afraid you would need to take the cam covers off to do that. But while you're doing that, check the pulleys are working properly. So you need to take the pulleys apart and make sure it's clean. So yeah, if it isn't the filters, which you're saying they're clean, then I'd say it's definitely the pulleys. Alright, what else have we got here? How are we doing time wise? Right, halfway through. Right, Mark, thanks Duncan, that's another one for you then. Right, cool, yeah, bring it down. Alright, okay, Sam Constable. Hi Duncan, after an engine rebuild, should the car be able to boost over what it was mapped before the build? As I did acceleration in second gear and the gauge read 1.4 bar instead of 1 bar. Sam, was it mapped for 1 bar? That seems quite low. It should be the same unless there was like a major issue or a major leak. Probably want to see what it was mapped for originally. Okay, a bit more information there. Only changes were forged pistons and a decat downpipe. So the decat downpipe is going to change the boost. So the air is coming through the engine and out the exhaust a lot easier. It will boost higher. I wouldn't be boosting it. Get the map checked or changed. Because if it was mapped for 1 bar and you're now hitting 1.4, you're getting into areas where it hasn't been checked. Right. Right, Andrew Grant, question, oil pressure sensor direct to the engine block or remote location to reduce vibration. Not found vibration being an issue with the oil pressure sensors. I ran mine directly into the block. I took out the standard Subaru standard Subaru engine dead switch, which is worse than hopeless, and just replace that with an oil pressure sensor direct into the block, using a little adapter into the plug. Never had an issue with the sensor failing from vibration. Those remote things that are on a braided line tend to be bouncing around and smacking against stuff anyway, and they're always failing. So I think probably in the block is a better place for it to be. Alright, Voice Brown, Brenton from Jamaica. Hello. Right, better to run. Oh, that's a nice question. Christopher Clark says, is it better to run more boost than less timing, or less boost and more timing? You get the same end result, assuming you're within what the turbo is efficient at. It's a personal preference. I tend to go with less boost and more timing because you've got less chance of the turbo producing much heat. So it's the same sort of cylinder pressures, but it's an age-old argument and discussion. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. Some cars work better with more boost and less timing. Some cars and engines work better with less boost and more timing. It's whatever works and whatever's happy and safe. Right, still running the TD04 and an 06 Hawkeye. Too much boost for those. Yeah, that I think that's way too much boost for a TD04 on a 2.5 engine, 1.4 bar. Those tend to be most efficient at about 1.2 bar, maybe 1.25 peak, but you'll always drop power at the top because the turbo is not big enough to fill up a 2.5 litre engine over the full rev range. Far away. Put it in the comments. Right. Right, Dan, you struggle to keep it off base because you have heavy feet. Right, put 3 carpet mats on your side of the car, and that'll be fine. Sorted. Right, Luna TL, can you please comment on fuel dampers? Do they affect performance and idle? Are they interchangeable, and how to troubleshoot? Ooh. From my own personal experience with those, like just from modifying my Hawkeye STI, where I had fuel dampers in there, I had standard fuel pumps. It was a brand new car when I bought it, and modified the crap out of it. It didn't affect the idle at all, taking them out, because I changed all the fuel lines through the car. Didn't affect the performance or idle. Are they interchangeable? They probably are. Troubleshoot, take them out and see whether it's changed. I know on the GR hatches and later, then the dampers and the return back off the fuel pressure regulator has an impact with that GR stutter, or stumble, or whatever you want to call it. But the later cars that have that stumble around 2,500, I think they have some impact on that, but whether they are the sole cause of it or a symptom, I don't fully know. Yeah, sorry, I can't answer that any better, I'm afraid. Sorry. If you can source an ESL, you need the hardware, the ESL daughter board. Is that something I can check, tweet? Yes, absolutely. Not an RCM at the moment. If you're around that area, I'm going to be mapping up a pole position, probably on a once a month basis, or Kamikaze Racing, which are also around that area. Right, FA20 car, and you put an EJ25. Do you need to change the factory ECU? Probably yes, because you're talking a direct injection engine and putting in a just standard injection setup. The ECU will have 1,000,001 codes. Probably, I haven't taken an FA20 engine apart, but probably the cam and crank sensor trigger wheels are going to be different, so it wouldn't even recognize the RPM. So I'd say, yeah, it's a full wiring swap. Quite a lot of work. So wiring and ECU. Okay. Okay, right, Mark. Evening. On the note of oil pressure dummy light, if removed on oil changes, how are you to gauge pressures? Okay to restart after priming, no light to use as safety. If you're taking it out and putting an oil pressure sensor in there, then the oil pressure gauge is going to tell you that's the way. Or prime the oil filter and start it up the same as a Subaru dealer would do after they've done any oil change. They do not do the unplugging the crank sensor. I would very much doubt whether they even fill an oil filter. They'll just start it up. Hi Gary, is rolling launch control worth it? It's absolutely epic fun, yes. And on yours, it'll be mental trying to hold on to that. Yeah, press a button. You need a steering wheel button on your right thumb, because you're going to need to be changing gear with the other one. Yeah, it's good job for next year, I think, on yours. Here we go. Missed the question up here. Oh, where did it go? Bear with me a second. Right, what definition can work for the FB20 block? Does ECU work on it? I don't know. I haven't plugged in on that on the FA20 engine. I tend to use ECU tech on the FA20 cars, but I can certainly have a look around on ECU Edit and update in the description after the comments, after the video has gone live. All right. Okay, Marcin Valkowski. Sir Duncan, hello. Sorry for bothering you with the ECU definition file for the 2008 Impreza NA. You've established that with the Hitachi ECU, you can use PCM Flash Module 16 or MMC Flash Module 29. Good information. Or Alex Flasher. Not sure, but probably I could flash, but not edit tables on my own. Yeah, yeah. Let me do some research on those, and I'll email you, Marcin. Mark, yeah. Never knew that. With the electronic gauge I have, it won't work till the car is running, unfortunately, or ignition is on. You could put a manual gauge in there if you wanted. They work, or just take a leap of faith. Unless it's a fresh build, there will still be an awful lot of oil in and around the engine. And if it can't cope with 2 turns of priming, then it can't cope with anything. All right. Okay. Bumba here from Zambia. Hello. Blimey. Is the Subaru Sport Shift gearbox reliable with stock power? Are you talking about the CVT gearbox? If you are, then it should be reliable. Yeah, should be reliable. Yeah, Subarus are known for reliability. It's only us users, by modifying them and getting a bit carried away with them, that it tends to reduce that reliability side of things. Yeah, the Sport Shift box is supposed to be able to cope with probably another 15-20% on top of what the stock power can provide. if I've got the wrong idea on this, then please let me know. Right, is there any other questions in there? Right, here we go. Zaid, blocked off your PCV valve today when installing AOS. Car drives as normal as it should. Will that need mapping now that the manifold is not drawing air in from the intake anymore? No, because all you're doing is removing the potential for there to be oily vapour going into the inlet manifold. Is only going to make it better, not going to make it any riskier than what you had before. It's going to improve the octane of the fuel air mixture, so it's a good thing. Doesn't need mapping. All right. Okay, are we up to date with the questions on there? Right, engine gearbox oil recommendations. I know you're down in Oz. Engine oil, I tend to use 1550, just because the EJ engine is an old design and 1550 gives it a bit of extra protection. The manuals say 1040, but if you go onto a lot of these, what type of oil should I be running type checker, then it tends to come back with 530, which I think is too thin. Gearbox oil 7590 or 75-140 gives it a bit of extra calming down, can get rid of some of the whines, but it's not going to cure physical problems. What did I put in? Miller's 75-140 into the Forester STI. Have I covered all of those? Right, okay. We're getting towards the end of the questions. Right. Geordie Mac just purchased a Hawkeye WRX import 2 litre previously on the dyno and is putting out 260 horsepower at the wheels. Is this possible with a stock TD04 as the turbo being hybrid? It depends what dyno. 260 at the wheels. Yeah, it varies as to what that would work out at flywheel figures. Is this in the UK, Geordie? 2 litre Hawkeye import. My gut feel would say that is probably more likely to be dyno overreading than the turbo being hybrided. Okay, from JM Imports. I thought we had a hub dyno. It might be at the hubs. I've heard a lot of people say blocking the PCV valve is bad. Yeah, the PCV valve tends to block or stick open, so getting rid of it if you're running a separate catch can, particularly with the air oil separator where you're actually using the vacuum of the inlet pipe to draw air from the breathers. You don't need the PCV on that setup. Right. Right, Sam. Hi, Sam. Hi, Duncan. Right, fitted 1050X injectors, rescaled everything to suit. Just after starts, it needs a tiny bit of throttle Do I need to remove from warm-up enrichment also? I need to log from coil for data. Yeah, you would. If you've scaled those injectors for, put the injectors in for 1050s, the warm-up enrichment tables are in milliseconds, so yeah, you can scale those down and it should run a bit cleaner on a cold start. There'll be tip-in enrichments and all kinds of stuff. I'm not sure whether you're on the standard ECU or what ECU, Sam, but on the standard ECU there's tip-in enrichments and all those kinds of tables. Okay. Right, another question from Portugal. I have a stock oil pan. Can I do fast corners on street and mountain roads? Yeah, problem with mountain roads there, Jose, is because you're going up and round and the heat and everything else. I would say your best option is to get a properly baffled sump. I'm going to be doing a video very soon which will be featuring one of those. The baffle plate, as I said in my last the busting 10 more mists video, doesn't solve oil surge, might solve some breathing issues, but on the mountain roads, yeah, I think that's probably the issue. Depends how fast you drive though, Jose. On the street you're probably fine with the standard sump, but just keep an eye on the oil level, make sure that there's enough oil in there to have a bit of fun with. Right, Grant. I knew you were going to ask that. What are your thoughts on Arashi turbos now? They're actually, they're all right. The one that was on Grant's car that we had on the dyno on Monday, I'm wading through hours of video for that, putting that together into something that's usable. Works really well, making some significant power, and will be even better once he's got fuel to go with the air that's been squashed in there. So that should be exciting when that's in place. But yeah, Arashi, not too bad. Fueling is fine everywhere else. Start spot on. Fueling under boost, yeah, perfect. Are you on the standard ECU, Sam? Oh, okay, yeah, just read that. 16-bit ECU. Yeah, the warm-up enrichment, scale those down. That should make it run a bit cleaner. Okay, that's another job for me. Yeah, let me get the clutch in there first, Gary, because that might be too much of a temptation for you. Okay, I think I spoke to you on the phone the other day, Geordie. Turbo better suited. I would pick any of the ones from the STIs, like a VF43 from the Hawkeye STI, VF48, any of the newer ones. The higher the number just means it's newer. All of those will get you over the 300 mark. Curious as to why a link ECU was put in there. The standard ECU is absolutely fine. I got up to, well over 500 horsepower on the standard ECU. Right. IAG, oil pan or Killer B, they are both good. Hopefully I'll be able to see both of them and compare both of them soon. I'm waiting for UK stock on those. but they both look properly good. Okay, are we finished on this? Right, any more questions, guys? Right, what was that? Okay, what was that? All right, Kev, freeze up once and blew your dipstick out. That would only happen if you're blocking the breathers. So if they're going into a catch can and the exit from the catch can is blocked, which if that's going into the PCV valve, that will be blocked under boost. So all that pressure will be going back down into the sump and has to come out somewhere. So it would either blow oil up through the drain pipe into the turbo and come out through the turbo, blow the seals, or it will spit your dipstick out. Neither of those are good. Okay, right. So we are at the end. I hope I've answered everyone's question. If I haven't, pop it in the comments below the video after the live session's finished, and I will get back to you on it. And yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.